Hey, welcome back. Vincent Smith here. I want to apologize first for taking such a long break from the channel, but I had a lot of other things going on, including getting involved in some local politics, and I'm back, got a little bit more time on my hands. So I want to come back to you and tell you what I've been working on lately and starting to learn. I'm entering into and learning about a new aspect to me anyway, of prepping, and that's communications, specifically ham radio communications. I've gone and taken my licensing tests and passed them all, and now I got to actually learn what I'm doing. So one thing I've decided that I'm going to do for my preps is first focus on communication, because without communication, you may not have the right information to know how to use your other preps, and where to be, when to leave, when to stay, those kinds of things. So I've decided that I want to build something called a ham radio go box. Most of you probably know what that is. For those that don't, a ham radio go box is a container in which you put all of your equipment that you need to establish radio frequency communications wherever you may be. That includes the radio equipment itself, power sources, not just one. It's antennas, anything you need to get the antenna up in the air or erected, if it's a vertical antenna, whatever you need to get that radio operational to send and receive radio signals, and to interpret them if you're doing digital communications. So you put that all in a box, and it's stowed there in a way that, if you have a need to leave in a hurry, you grab that box, put it in the truck, and you've got your communication system with you. So one other aspect that I want to build into my Go box is Faraday protection. We'll talk more about this and explain it later, but in the event of, say, an EMP or a CME, or even, let's just say, a major power surge, you may have a need for some protection of that equipment, which would include not having it plugged into anything. It needs to be shielded from certain types of electromagnetic radiation. So we're going to learn how to install that into your ham radio Go box. Another aspect of this is it should be capable of being powered by at least two means. I'm going to have three in my box. Whether you plug it in the wall, batteries, those types of things, you need at least two options to power this box on the run. So here's what we're going to do. I picked up a Pelican 1620 off of eBay used, and we're going to take this empty box and we're going to make it look like this. Inside here, we have a solar panel that will charge up the battery that is underneath this. We have HF radio and HF antenna tuner. We have UHF, VHF. We have 110 volt power supply, CB. We have solar cable. We have a RG8X cable for the HF antenna. We have an antenna itself. We have a couple pouches for tools and ballons and ununs. We have a space here for, right now there's just one HT in here, but there's room for two. And down under here, you can spot a couple of antennas. And there's also room right here for one of these Soda Beams telescoping carbon fiber poles, which is on back orders, why I don't have one sitting here right now. And we have our power management here and the LifePo battery underneath there. All right, so let's talk about briefly the importance of Faraday shielding, Faraday cages. Give you a brief introduction, very brief, into what they are and why we're going to put one in this box. So there are some natural things and some unnatural things that can happen in this environment, in the Earth's environment, have happened in the past, that can destroy every electronic thing you have. The electronics in your car, your cell phone, your computer, the grid, everything would go down. The only way to protect your electronics from these things is to create a Faraday cage. Now, what is that? A Faraday cage is when you take a conductive box and create a bubble, a completely encased bubble, no gaps, no nothing, and you put all of your electronics inside of it. The bubble creates a shielding and a way for the electrical charges in the atmosphere to pass around your electronics that are protected inside this. Now, they can't be plugged in. They can't be connected to anything outside of this bubble. There can be nothing that goes through this bubble or this cage. The second part of this is they cannot touch it. If they touch it, they're going to receive the charge that comes from these events, and they're going to be completely destroyed. So what these events are. These are, the EMP is an electromagnetic pulse. It's a sort of a side effect, or it's also can be an intentional result of an atomic explosion. A CME is a coronal mass ejection. That's basically when the sun spits out a bunch of electrical charges and they come down here and destroy all of our electronics. So, but when you put things inside this Faraday cage, they also can't touch it. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this material. This is Mission Darkness Titan RF Faraday fabric. This is designed to provide the type of protection we're talking about. You probably need 2 layers of this to be really effective. One might do it, but it's a fairly flexible material. It sounds kind of metallic. It looks kind of metallic. I believe it has some nickel actually woven into it. Not terribly expensive, not terribly cheap. I can tell you, I'm not a real expert at how this stuff works or why it works, but I've paid a lot of attention, read a lot of stuff, and watched some videos from a gentleman named Dr. Arthur Bradley. I'll have a link to his videos down below. I really recommend you go and study on this so you understand exactly what it is you're doing. He knows so much about it that the government comes to him for advice. So now inside of that Faraday lining, we're going to use these rubber floor mats. I mean, a lot of people have these out in the garage. I'm standing on a whole bunch of them down here. These are made out of an EVA, I think, type material, which is some kind of a foam, rubbery foam. This will do just fine. They're about a 1/2 inch thick, and we're just going to cut these and line the inside of the box inside of the Faraday fabric, and that keeps our equipment from actually touching the Faraday cage. So. All right, so what I've done here is I've cut 2 pieces of the Faraday fabric, one for the lid and one for the base. And notice they got pretty big tail on here. I've drawn a rectangle in the center of each one, roughly where the corner in the bottom or the top has to go, so that I can just spray glue down inside this box, drop that down in there, and those lines should line up right around here. Now you're going to notice that in this 1620 Pelican case, there's 2 corners that have wheel cutouts in them. I'm going to have to figure out how to work around that as I go, and I may have to actually cut out part of my frame to get it to fit all the way down in there. But it is absolutely imperative that there are no gaps in the Faraday fabric. That includes at the top, or at the lid, where the lid joins the base. So right here, what we're going to have to do is wrap that fabric up around this corner, but we can't go over top of the seal because you might interfere with the watertight seal that the Pelican case has. So we're going to have to glue that fabric down right around that edge and then cut it right along the inside of here. And then there's one other issue we need to deal with. These larger Pelican boxes come with these, I'm going to call it a bung for lack of a better descriptor, but these are going to make it very difficult to put the fabric down nice and smooth. As you can see, they stand up proud so you can put certain type of attachments on the lid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an oscillating tool and I'm going to cut all these off flush before I glue the lid fabric down. Now for this part of the operation, we're just going to use some 3M general purpose 45 spray adhesive. I'm going to spray it on the inside of the box and then take it back inside and stick the fabric to it. As you can see here, I've cut those bungs off already. As you can see here, I've already got the lid done. Not perfect, but this isn't the Mona Lisa here. It's going to get covered up anyway. The most important part of this is as you go to get it all the way up in the corners, just keep smoothing out that fabric up into the glue you've sprayed on all the way up into the corner before you start going up the sides. So now you can see here, I've got the fabric in there glued down to the sides, and I've cut the corners off here. Now the Titan Faraday fabric kit I bought came with some tape. I'm going to use the tape that edge down along here, and then to make this corner at the top, I'm going to have to cut some slits in the paper, then lay it down into the corner here of the Pelican's seal there, and then we're going to glue that down with some contact cement. So that's going to be a little bit slower of a process. We're going to just take some contact cement and glue that down, and then we're going to hold that down in that corner with a putty knife and cut that off to where it lays right on that lip right there, so that when you have the fabric here laying on this lip and then the lid doing the same thing, those 2 pieces are going to come into contact together when the case is closed, and that's going to create the conductive bubble that surrounds the equipment. All right, so making a little more progress. As you can see here, I've got the bottom lined. I've laid it out over the top of the lip here, cut it back down flush with the bottom of the seal, and then I've taped the corner joints. Now I've started working on the insulation. So I'm using these floor mats that I got off Amazon. Links to everything are below. And I'm even reusing the joints, and I'm treating them like they're finger joints. If you look up finger joints in woodworking, you'll know what I'm talking about. So now we're going to line the inside of the box with an insulation layer, and then we're going to repeat the process for the top. Now this is going to get attached with the contact cement, so that this is all in here and hopefully somewhat solid. And then we'll move on to the aluminum frame. So to give you a little better idea of how I'm lacing or finger joining these floor mats together, if you cut off about a third of each of the jigsaw ends on them, you do the same thing on the other piece, then they just lace right together. It makes a nice, pretty nice joint there. Now the other thing I did on the back is in some of the corners, you have to cut off about a 45-degree angle on the back side of some of the corners. See if I can get this to focus. Just because the Pelican boxes do have corner braces and webbing in some of these corners, so you're going to have to relieve for that. All right, so we've got the entire inside of the Pelican box finished. You can see we've got both the Titan RF fabric layer and the insulating cushion layer complete. It's seamless. And you can see here, the Titan RF is exposed here and here. And when you close it, those two joints touch each other and creates the encapsulating electrical bubble. So next we're going to have to create an aluminum framework inside here to hold all the radio gear. And we're going to do that with the 2080 T-Track. This stuff is the first time I've used this stuff. I'm going to give it a shot. And using that and this aluminum diamond plate we're going to make end caps for that. So there'll be aluminum diamond plate here and here, and then the T-Tracks will span in between it. And how we're going to do that is with these M6 button head screws. And this stuff's pretty slick. Like I said, never used it before. We're going to give her a shot. You take a M6 tap and you drill out these holes right here, or I'm sorry, you tap out these holes, and then you can just thread them right in. And then there's various brackets and things, all of which are linked down below. All right, so the frame's all assembled now. In general, I'm still going to take this apart, put some blue Loctite on a lot of these screws, but I want to make sure everything dry fits perfectly. Just gives you an idea of how it was laid out in general. But I don't think I went into how the battery's going to be set into place. So the way I've got this laid out, the battery slides right into here, and we made up this piece. It's got a couple of these brackets on it that slides right in here. And then we're going to secure that to these T-nuts up in here. And there's another one of these back here on the other side that keeps the battery from sliding out to the inside. So that's going to secure the battery. And then the power distribution goes up here with some West Mountain. We got a power gate there, and we're just going to clamp these down with some of these T-nuts here just on the flange. And that's all it's going to need. We don't have to actually drill a bunch of holes in these things. And then we've got a PowerWorks watt meter here that's going to connect the two together. We're going to do a little bit of wire management later. And then I'm going to go ahead and install the radios in here. I've made up quite a few different kinds of brackets and things and cut them all down to get everything installed. And still waiting on some of this paint to dry, but I actually made some different brackets here. And as you can see with the MFJ antenna tuner, none of these devices have any way of mounting them. And I think we really need to reach out to the manufacturers and say, how about putting some rivet nuts in the sides and the top of these things? Because I had to actually take this apart. Pretty sure I avoided my warranty on all this stuff, but I've got to have some way to hold it in there. I don't recommend you do that. I'm just not scared of it. So I drilled a few holes in the side here so I can put some brackets on there to mount it right down in here. So I'm going to put it all together, and we're going to come back and talk some more about wire management. All right, so now we've got everything mounted in there. We've got the 7300, the tuner, 2730 power supply, CB, power management, the battery in here. Next, we're going to have to start working on wiring everything up. And we're going to do that by flipping this thing up on its end and working from the bottom. Now we can work on everything from down here. We can do some decent cable management. And the idea is that when you're using this, you can take it out of the Pelican box if you want, stand it up on end. This will also help with heat dissipation, which I'm really not sure how this is going to handle the heat when it's down inside the Pelican box. All right, so we're in the middle of the wiring here, and I've run into a little bit of a problem. As you can see, I've made a mess out of my workspace here. But I wanted to show you that to connect the antenna tuner to the back of the 7300, there's a cable for that, right? That has this connector, which I've actually forgotten the name of it. It's something that starts with an M. But when you connect this to the back of the 7300, and I'm going to give you an alignment shot here. If you look across the bottom, it sticks out. Let me think I can try it from up here. You can see right here, the wires, they're going to get kinked really badly. So I'm not going to be able to use this connector in a Molex. That's called a Molex connector. And there's not one of these made that's a 90-degree connector. So to solve this problem, what I've had to do is actually order the parts for the Molex connector. And I'm using these and an old Cat 6 cable. And I'm reproducing the factory cable. And I'm just making a custom one that doesn't have the plastic housing for the connector. And I'm directly soldering these right to the wires. And then what I'm going to have to do is plug them in individually and bend this over 90 degrees to where it won't sit on the bottom of the box when you put this inside there. Now, I know it's easy to say that, well, maybe the better solution is to move the radio up. But right now, the 1620 Pelican case, this knob and these knobs on the 7300, there's only about a quarter or an eighth of an inch of space to the lid. So I really don't want to do that because I don't want to have force down on these knobs when it's closed. Hey, guess what? It's done. We'll give you a quick tour and then we'll show you how it all comes together. So you can see here, not much has changed since the last time you saw the front. Got all the gear here. Got some power distribution down here with the Epic Power Gate from West Mountain Radio. I did add a piece of aluminum angle here that has the CB, the UHF, VHF, and the HF antenna ports. Come around the side here, you got more power management through a Rig Runner 4000. Everything attached here. This one is open so that I can charge HT radios with their bases. Come around the back. Cable management's done about the best I think I can do it here. As you can see, you got the bottom of all the antenna connections here. You got all your power managements down here. Down here, you've got that custom cable I had to make. I'm not real happy with this. I am going to wrap this up with some electrical tape for now, but I really think I'm going to have to 3D print some kind of a housing for this just to keep these separated. I really worry about just wrapping electrical tape around here because that's just going to pull these together and short something out. So, like I said, still going to have to figure that one out. Don't worry about this cable here. This is the power cable for the power supply. As you can see, everything is just barely flush with the bottom. So this is the Pelican 1620 box that we prepared with the Faraday lining and then the EVA foam padding. And this thing just dropped right down in there. As you can see here, the fit on this came out just dead perfect. So one other thing that your box is definitely going to need is, or should have anyway, you need to have enough storage in the box to put everything in it that you're going to need to establish your communication station. You're going to need things like spools of wire and antennas. You're going to need extra wire so you can put up wire antennas into trees. You may need some devices like spectrum analyzers and antenna analyzers to make sure that your antenna is not going to damage your radio. You can't just hook your radio up to any old wire and antenna, turn it on, transmit. You might break your radio. You may also want some more personalized communications devices like HTs, handy talkies. Some people call them walkie-talkies. When you get up into these 2 meter, 70 centimeter devices, they're typically called HTs. You may even need, if you live somewhere that doesn't have a lot of trees especially, but even if you do, you may need some kind of a telescoping mast that you can set up to get your antenna up in the air. This one's a really good one. It's a POTA Explorer, I think, 20 feet packs up that small and fits in the box. So make sure that you've also got space for tablets and laptops, any device that you may have that you have records on, or you have reference materials for your equipment on, the manuals for the radio, your band plans for your team, those types of things. You may also want to have those on paper, up to you. But another aspect of having the tablet or the laptop in there is that you can connect it to a lot of these radios, and then you have digital communications over radio frequency. So it does more things than just transporting your records and getting you back up in your email when the grid comes back up. So anyway, don't forget storage. So to wrap up, I do consider this a success. I'm going to say some negative things about it. I'm going to say some positive things about it, but I'm happy with the result. I have tested this using only what was in the box. I strung up a Ribikov antenna in the front tree in my yard. I'm in coastal Virginia, and I made contacts within an hour. I was making contacts 700 miles to Florida, 500 miles Massachusetts, 500 miles in Georgia, that type of thing on 20 meters during the daytime. I have not put a 2-meter, 70 centimeter antenna or a CB antenna in this box yet. I'm still trying to work that part out. I'm not convinced that these types of boxes need to have the 2-meter, 70 centimeter capability in there. A lot of people have bought Baofengs recently. A lot of people have HTs, but I just don't see people using them that much, honestly. So in the type of situation we're talking about, I just don't know if that's needed. I can tell you an HT is easy to put on your hip and go out the door. It's a lot easier than this thing. I mean, this thing weighs 85 pounds. That's one negative thing I'm going to say about it. So anyway, let's talk about the second generation. I do plan to improve on this, make another version of this in the near future. So if you want to see that, make sure you subscribe before this video wraps up. Goal number 1, reduce the weight. That may mean going down to HF only. I mean, ditching the CB is going to save, a 1/4 of a pound. I mean, things like that just aren't going to save that much weight in there. A lot of the weight is just the wire, the cabling. I mean, the coax, the antenna wire, the antennas themselves. Those things, they just have weight because they're copper. I also would like, one thing I would like to increase, I would like to have a larger battery. The 20 amp hour battery in there, it does great. I can't help but think that, someday I might wish I had more. And then separately, I also want to make a much smaller version of this. I've already started on this, but I'm going to create a TSA carry-on compliant version of this box. It's going to be HF only, probably built around actually it will be built around a Xiegu X6100 because it's already sitting on the desk. So anyway, appreciate you coming and paying attention and listening here because, I'm just kind of rambling on at this point, so I'll see you later.